Hello folks, this is Jacob Harkey. It is June 4th, 2024, and I am back once again in the Grand Park outside of the Stanley Mosque Courthouse. And I'm here this morning because there was a hearing scheduled for today in the Jane Doe V Religious Technology Center lawsuit. It was scheduled as a case management conference, and it ended up being continued to July 16th, so not too much significant happened today. But there's also a hearing scheduled tomorrow in Valerie Haney's lawsuit against the Church of Scientology. So I did want to take a moment to chat a little bit about each of the cases that have had hearings scheduled for this week and talk a little bit about what's significant in each case. So, to give folks a reminder about the case that had a hearing scheduled for today, Jane Doe V Religious Technology Center et al. Is a lawsuit that has been brought forth by the plaintiff Jane Doe. Jane Doe is an ex-Scientologist and ex-Sea Org member who was brought into the Sea Org, which is Scientology's internal clergy. She was brought in as a minor, and she was SA'd by her recruiter while she was a minor. That recruiter's name was Gavin Potter, and once she reported her essay to the Church of Scientology, Scientology then presented Gavin Potter and Jane Doe with an ultimatum. Either they could get married, or they could go to Scientology's prison camp known as the RPF. They opted to get married. So, Jane Doe now is out of Scientology and is suing the church. Now, this lawsuit was initially brought toward the end of 2022 and was being heard in Judge Robert Broadbelt's courtroom. And there were some interesting developments in the case over the last 7 months or so. There was a hearing toward the end of 2023 in which Judge Robert Broadbelt permitted Jane Doe's legal team to move forward with conducting limited discovery related to the arbitration agreement that Jane Doe signed into. I'll back up for a moment to explain what some of that means. Every lawsuit that is brought against the Church of Scientology, or every lawsuit that has been brought against the Church of Scientology in recent years, has been successfully derailed by the church because the church has a habit of pulling out contracts that ex-Scientologists signed while they were members of the church, compelling them not to sue the church and instead to take any grievances with the church to the Church of Scientology's International Justice Chief so that justice can be handled internally. Well, this has successfully derailed a handful of lawsuits, and sure enough, in the Jane Doe V Religious Technology Center lawsuit, the Church of Scientology was unsurprisingly starting to pull out that same contract. However, the plaintiffs made the argument that this contract is not conscionable, and after presenting some of their limited argument into that, the judge in December permitted the plaintiff's legal team to move forward with conducting limited discovery relating to the circumstances that led up to Jane Doe signing the agreement. Now, not long ago, within the last few weeks, there was an additional hearing on the motion to compel arbitration, and a tentative ruling was posted by Judge Robert Broadbelt the day before the hearing, and in the tentative ruling, it appeared that the judge was leaning toward ruling this agreement is unconscionable, and yes, this lawsuit can move forward. Well, I was really looking forward to attending that hearing. I anticipated that there was going to be a lot of argument coming from the attorneys representing the Church of Scientology and other defendants in the case about why this is an abuse of the justice system and this case should be into arbitration already. But then something unexpected happened. I did chat a little bit about this the day that it happened, but what happened that day is that David Miscavige, the leader of the Church of Scientology, through his attorney Jeffrey Riffer, was able to file a peremptory challenge to have Judge Robert Broadbelt removed from the case. Now, there were some There were some arguments being made by the plaintiff's attorneys about why he shouldn't be able to do this because there's already a certain amount of time that has passed since Mr. Miscavige accepted service in the case, and that should constitute a general appearance, and enough time has now passed since a general appearance for him to not be able to make this peremptory challenge. But unfortunately, the judge did find that this peremptory challenge does constitute the first general appearance being made by Mr. Miscavige in the case. Therefore, he is within his rights to exercise this peremptory challenge, and my hands are tied. So Judge Robert Broadbelt was then done with the case. So today was the first hearing that was scheduled in this case since that happened, and it was the first time that I was anticipating I would get to see the new and current judge, Kevin Brazil. Now, I got into the courtroom and I saw many of the same usual suspects who I see at many of the other hearings. I saw William Foreman and Peggy Dayton, who represent Church of Scientology International. I also saw Robert Mangles and Matthew Hinks, who represent Religious Technology Center. And I even saw this time Jeffrey Riffer, who represents David Miscavige. However, before the judge even came out of his chambers, the clerk let us know that the case management conference that was scheduled for today has been continued to July 16th. So, no new big updates in the Jane Doe V Religious Technology Center case for today. But I did want to bring it up. I did want to catch folks up to speed about what the recent developments in the case have looked like. And also, I wanted to explain the arbitration contract that all of these plaintiffs are having to deal with because they've successfully derailed so many lawsuits. One such lawsuit that has been forced into arbitration is Valerie Haney's lawsuit against the church. And for those unfamiliar with Valerie Haney is an ex-Scientologist and ex-Sea Org member who previously worked at the Church of Scientology's international headquarters in Riverside County near Hemet. And if you've seen Leah Remini's TV series, Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, in episode 1 of season 3, Valerie Haney tells her story of how she escaped from the international base by getting into the trunk of the car of a non-Scientologist actor who had come to the base to film something for Scientology. Now, she sued the church in 2019, and her lawsuit was unfortunately forced into religious arbitration. And in order to appeal the decision to put it into arbitration, she has to actually go through the arbitration. So she has now been through a full 5 days of arbitration. And arbitration is really not an appropriate word to describe what these proceedings are looking like, because Scientology has all of the power. All of the arbitrators, quote unquote, have to be Scientologists in good standing. So they're not neutral. It's obviously very biased against the plaintiffs. And also, Scientology is making up its own rules for how this arbitration proceeding is going to go. And they don't even have a deadline for when they need to be done by. So they can continue to drag this out for as many days as they want. And my understanding is that at tomorrow's hearing, they intend to push for an additional 5 days of arbitration to put Valerie through. And even then, there wouldn't necessarily be a guarantee that anything would be finished by then. They just want to drag this out as long as they can, presumably until Valerie no longer decides to continue pressing forward. But in any case, tomorrow there is a post-arbitration status conference set. I'm very curious to see how this goes, because I anticipate that Valerie's attorneys are going to present Valerie's recollection of what happened at the arbitration, while making the argument that Valerie should not have to go through more of this. She sued the church due to the abuse that she has experienced at the hands of the church, and now in this bogus arbitration proceeding that she's being put through, she's having to sit across from some of the very people who facilitated her abuse while she was in the church. Now, my hope is that the judge will hear what is presented at the post-arbitration status conference, recognize that this entire arbitration sham is just a sham, and I'm hoping hoping to see this lawsuit revived so that it can be litigated properly from within a courtroom and not from Scientology's rules that they're setting for themselves. So, those are the primary updates that I wanted to share for today. There was a case management conference scheduled in the Jane Doe V Religious Technology Center case, but it was continued. And tomorrow, there is a post-arbitration status conference scheduled in Valerie Haney's case. I'm very curious to see how that goes for tomorrow. I'll take a moment to scroll through the chat a bit and see some of the folks who made it into the live stream. Hi, Quiet Lion. Hi, Laura. Thanks, y'all, for joining. Hello, Kelly. Hey, Kid Freshie. And I will mention, as I'm scrolling through some of these, there are some other pretty interesting things going on in the area. So where I'm at right now, the Grand Park, is very close to the LA City Hall, where there is a new Palestine Solidarity encampment, which I certainly intend to check out today. I will wrap up this stream before long so that I can take a quick break and go get situated for that live. Thank you to everybody who joined this live stream, and thank you to everybody who is watching in the replay crew, and I will talk to you all very soon.